afternoon, everyone. 2 o'clock straight up on a Monday edition of On Cue, coming at you live inside the friendly confines of the remote studios of SR 1029 FM The Game. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. Get social with us. Very easy to do. At Rich Q on Q. Hope everyone had a wonderful sports weekend. You are enjoying your 23rd of March 2026. Get in on the conversation on this Man Up Monday edition of On Cue, a Lunes Manolo Mentiroso Logador de Radio edition of On Cue. And let me just say this. I was a little nervous. I was a little apprehensive. I was getting a little discombobulated while watching St. John's, their first game of the tournament against Northern Iowa. I got a little dicey with that 12-5 seed, and they get to win. And then yesterday, the miracle that is Darling in the layup. Wow, unbelievable. So a lot of March Madness to get into today on this Monday. I think the tournament has been just phenomenal. It has been just phenomenal to watch. And yeah, I'm absolutely ecstatic on a Monday to come on the air with St. John's winning in dramatic fashion with the driving layup. I thought that game yesterday for St. John's could have been a ultimate choke job, right? An ultimate choke job with a team that has been trending up and ascending since the arrival of one Rick Pitino, who, let's just call for what it is. Let's just call Rick Pitino for what he is. He's an all-time great coach. I mean, he's a legend. You might even start to argue that this man is greatest basketball, college basketball coach of all time. I mean, honestly, and I get it. Maybe not the same body of work with the national titles like a Coach K, that longevity like a Bobby Knight and or the run of a John Wooden, but everywhere that Pitino has gone, this man has just been a program builder. And like I said yesterday, I'm watching this game unfold. St. John's up 14, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, they're going to figure out a way to pull away. They just couldn't make shots in the first half, even though they led Kansas 34-26. They had that stretch where they were 0-9 from the floor. Ziggy Scooby-Dooby-Doo, my man, started to play much better in the second half, and Zuby was just a man possessed. And they got unbelievable production down the stretch from Hopkins, who had a couple big threes. And even though it was going back and forth, and I think late in the game, the backcourt violation was a horrible no call. But I even thought late in the game, everyone talking about self and using those fouls to wind down the clock, I had no problem. I actually thought it was smart. I mean, I don't think it was, chess versus checkers with Pitino, because at the end of the day, the last 20-something odd seconds, you knew you were going to get the ball in the possession with an opportunity to score and get out of there with a win in dramatic fashion. It was just a question, a matter of how much time was going to be left on the clock for St. John's. That's all it really was. So, self-electing foul. And then obviously St. John's having the opportunity with just under 4 seconds to go. Darling, who did absolutely nothing in the game, his only made field goal was a driving layup with the right hand, and boom, 67-65 at the buzzer, dramatic fashion. If you're a St. John's fan like me, you can't recall ever having a buzzer beater like that. Now, I hearken back to 2000. I think it was 2000, 2001, Bootsy Thornton with the three with 13 seconds to go. The game where he had 44, also in overtime against Duke. They have rarely have had buzzer beaters in their storied history. But for St. John's and Pitino, they're marching on. And now you try to exercise the demons that is Duke. That has been historically a thorn in St. John's side. You had the upset yesterday. Florida goes down, and I'm wondering where my guy DB might be on this Monday. But Florida goes down. The top seed, the Gators, the defending national champs, they lose to Iowa late, 73-72. Arizona over Utah State. Purdue, 10 better than Miami. Kentucky got waxed by Iowa State. UConn, easy work of UCLA. Tennessee over Virginia. We talked about St. John's. We'll get into more of that game. And Alabama roasting Texas Tech. So I think if you look, whose bracket has been busted? right? I mean, whose bracket's been busted? We saw Villanova lose. We saw UConn lose, right? We saw Louisville lose. I mean, by the way, hell of a job with Michigan State. You know, you just talk about the consistency that is Michigan State. They just always, I mean, just you talk about an all-time great coach too. Let's just, call for what it is, right? I mean, this guy, Tom Izzo, is 71 years of age. And listen, he's just going and going and going. This guy's been with Michigan State since 1995, and just the level of consistency is remarkable. He's also been a program changer, right? So, look, I think ultimately it's been a fun tournament. I think it's been a fascinating tournament. I think it's been an extremely compelling tournament, and that's all you can look for. That's all you want when you're watching March Madness. You want the games, you want the tournament to be compelling. That's it. That's all you want. You want compelling games, and we're seeing it. And yesterday was no different. I mean, some of these games too, even on Friday night, Saturday night, crazy. Absolutely crazy. Some of these endings. But that's the beauty of March Madness. We've talked about it for how long now? That's the beauty of March Madness. Some of these games that are coming right down to the wire, they are giving you, the fan, everything that you can hope for. Now, look, there were some blowouts on Saturday. Michigan blowing out St. Louis, Duke blowing out TCU, right? Houston all over Texas A&M. Nebraska and Vanderbilt was an unbelievable game. That was a classic. High Point, their little Cinderella story comes to an end against Arkansas, but they hung in there. Vanderbilt, Nebraska was a phenomenal game. It really was. It was a phenomenal. You had Frager making that driving layup with 2 seconds, right? Turner had to heave, rimmed in and out at the buzzer for Vanderbilt. I mean, that ball was down. I mean, that ball, if you're a Nebraska fan, you're watching that ball literally went down and then came right back out. And Nebraska goes on to the Sweet 16. Here's a team that's never had success in March Madness. They've never had success in the tournament. And here we go. So the Sweet 16 is assembled. It's set. Thursday, Texas versus Purdue, Iowa versus Nebraska, Arkansas versus Arizona. Arizona, the chalk still sits right there with your top seed in Arizona, Illinois and Houston. And then, of course, on Friday, St. John's Duke, that's a 7-10 start. Duke is laying 6.5. Michigan and Alabama. Michigan State at UConn, man, that is just a monster bracket, monster games coming right down there, right in the East region. And then obviously the Midwest, Tennessee and Iowa State. But I thought yesterday, I'm telling you right now, I think this is just my opinion. The fact that you have a guy in Rick Pitino, and he's everywhere this man has gone, he has been a program builder. Everywhere he has gone, he has been a program builder. And if you listen to Pitino when he took over the job, at St. John's, he basically said, look, a lot of these players are not going to be here. They're not my guys. They're not going to mesh with me because they're not going to get it. If you're not in love with the game, if you're not in love with the game of basketball, then it's not going to be a good fit. But everywhere this man has gone, he has been a proven winner. He has been a proven program builder. I mean, even talking about, he had a little cup of coffee, a couple games with Hawaii. Then he was with Boston University. Remember, Providence, right? Making that great run with Providence in 86, 87, taking them to the Final Four. All those years with Kentucky and now having an opportunity for revenge, Christian Laettner against Duke. Louisville, right? Iona, St. John's. I mean, everywhere this man has gone, he has won. He has won. Now, are you going to sit there and say, well, look at a guy like Bobby Knight. Look at a guy like Coach K. Look at a guy like John Wooden. Okay, I'll tell you right now, though, Pitino might be the greatest motivator we've ever seen in college basketball history. I mean, this guy, he might be the greatest. As soon as I go in there, I leave the program better off. I just win. I just win. That's all he does. He just wins. And that's what you look for. So he takes a St. John's squad after winning 27 games with Iona in 2022, 2023. St. John's goes 20-13. Okay? Then they turn around 31-5 and they get to the tournament. And they get bounced after a win. Now they're 30-6, Big East champs, back-to-back, by the way, and now they're in the Sweet 16. So all this man does is win. That's all he does. And for my money, I would make a case right now. He's greatest head basketball coach, college basketball coach of all time. Now, maybe it's recency bias. Maybe I'm biased because of what transpired yesterday. But again, I just think right now, it's just unbelievable. I really do. It's unbelievable. It was a hell of a game. It was a hell of a win. And he's just a stoic guy. He has mad respect for Bill Self. That was a crazy game. It would have been it would have been the worst choke jobs I've ever seen by St. John's or a team that I'm rooting for. And they finally get the W, much deserved. DB checks in first. Amazing win for St. John's. Poor Gators. I was thinking about you, brother. I was thinking about you. That game got a little chippy, and that game got a little dicey too. But we also saw that. We saw that over the weekend. And by the way, can we talk for a minute? You know, Gene Steratore, stop with the rules analyst and expert. Stop. He's horrible. Well, you know what? I think if whatever the refs see or you guys think, I'm good with that. Just stop already. Just stop. And I'm talking, you go to that Tennessee-Virginia game, which was really close. You know, that was in a really close game. And late in the game when the ball bounces off the kid's head and then, touches the hand, doesn't touch the hand. The St. John's game, you forget about the backcourt violation. The Iowa-Florida game, which was a classic. I mean, that was a great game. Now, obviously, if you're a Florida fan, you're defending champs and you get bounced in the second round, you're not happy. But that was just a crazy game, right? The kid nails a three-pointer, 4.5 seconds remaining, and then Florida has a hard time getting it off, and that's it. And Iowa squandered a 12-point lead in the second half and rallied in the final minutes. Same thing that St. John's. They were up 14. They couldn't hit a shot with under 6 to go. And Kansas kept chipping away, just like Florida did. That game was crazy. You have the missed three-pointer. Sturts comes back, misses the running layup. Brown grabs the rebound with 8.9 seconds to go. Brown made a second free throw. Iowa then easily breaks the full-court press. And that's something that Kansas had a major issue with against St. John's. And then you had a kid who's wide open in the corner for the three. Play was designed to go in a different direction. But, again, you got to make the right defensive switch. And what do? You just kind of toss it to the teammate, and here you go. That's an unselfish bunch, and that is as bad as a loss by a defending champ if I've seen, to go out like that. And now you got some upsets. And you guys asked me Friday, Saturday, over the weekend, the Cinderellas. Well, I don't know right now. I really don't know. Is St. John's a Cinderella? Is Louisville a Cinderella? Well, I'm sorry, Michigan State, a Cinderella because they're playing UConn. Texas, maybe Texas with the big win over Gonzaga. Now they got Purdue. Yeah, maybe they're a little Cinderella run. Would it be Arkansas if they turn around and figure out a way to beat Arizona? I honestly, I don't know, guys. I really don't know. Nebraska right now, you can consider a Cinderella because they've never done anything like this before in the history of March Madness because they don't really have a history when it comes to the tournament. Iowa State? Who knows? Alabama's looked really good. Alabama has impressed me, and they can score. And now you're taking on a Michigan team. That might be a high-scoring game. So all in all, I think the tournament has been unbelievable to watch this far. Pitino's non-reaction to winning shot was typical Pitino. Listen, I know, you get the old school guys, right? John Wooden had a just remarkable run. The Wizard of Westwood. And people, many will say that John Wooden is the greatest college basketball coach of all time, right? And when you look at the run he had with UCLA, you know, he didn't get them going, right, until um, you know, a couple seasons in, right? But it's very hard to dispute a gentleman that's won 10 national championships. I mean, in a 12-year span, 64 to 75, they were unbelievable. Now, if you also recall, he was with Indiana State. You know, John Wooden cut his teeth, Indiana State, and it's not like he was lighting the world on fire. But in 27 seasons at UCLA, he won 620 games and he won 10 chips. And think about all the pro players and the great teams that they sprouted out. 88 consecutive games, 4 30-0 seasons, 12 Final Four appearances. So yeah, you sit there and you probably say John Wooden is arguably the greatest men's head basketball coach the college ranks have ever seen. And again, you go back and you think about his time, Indiana State, and then part of UCLA, and then all of a sudden, boom, here we start to go in the late 60s, early 70s, and the run. But I would put a guy like Pitino right there because I know it's a different era, and I understand now with the NIL, and that's one of the other reasons you can sit there and say, well, it's harder to win when players are leaving so early. Yeah, but there's a flip side to that. You're also getting in some big-time players. So it works hand in hand. Listen, Pitino had a remarkable run with Kentucky. He had a remarkable run. Now, obviously, 89, 90, 90, 91, not eligible for the conference tournament, right? But again, you know, SEC, then he goes to Louisville. He wins with Louisville. And then, you know, he has that great run with Louisville. He goes to Iona. We forget he was with the Boston Celtics. People forget, you know, he was with the New York Knicks, and they loved playing for him back in the day, you know, in the late 80s before Stu Jackson. And now he's with St. John's. So, it might be that recency bias, but I'll take a guy, you know, 745 winning percentage is ridiculous. It really is. He just changes programs. He changes programs. Wonderful Wooden. Our good friend, Jane Justice, chimes in. A big UCLA fan. Yes, John Wooden was remarkable. He was remarkable. You know, people will sit there and say Coach K. People will sit there and say Bobby Knight. Like there are no wrong answers when you're talking about all-time great college basketball coaches. But for me, I just love the fact that a guy can go somewhere and he can be a program changer, right? So you look at Wooden, 10 NCAA championships in 12 years. That's the standard, which is likely unmatched. You know, Coach K, Duke and Army, all-time wins leader, over 1,200 wins, 5 national championships. Adolph Ruff, Kentucky. Dean Smith, North Carolina. I don't want to leave out Dean Smith. Bobby Knight, who had the run with Indiana, Texas Tech, Army, right? You're talking about the intense discipline, 900-plus wins. Roy Williams, Jimmy Calhoun. I put Pitino. I'm taking multiple schools to Final Fours. I'm winning some championships. And look, I think you're going to have their work cut out for him against Duke. I really do. But I give him a puncher's chance. I give him absolutely a puncher's chance to win that game. And I am not going to sit here on a Monday and write him in, right? But I'll tell you this. I'm going to give him a puncher's chance. I'm definitely, and I think the tournament's been fascinating. I want to hear what you guys think as far as who your Cinderella is. We can get into that. I did mention we'll mix in a little NFL. You saw the monster extension for JSN. We will get into that as well. We got a lot of comments coming in. 20 past the 2 o'clock hour on the East Coast. Keep locked in on a Monday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here. We're powered by our wonderful friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Check out the show notes if you guys are coffee drinkers like I am. Right there. You can use On Cue or BYP20 for your savings. Also, we're on YouTube, Kicks, Rumble, Millions platform, SR1029 FM The Game. Don't forget to download the AUDACY app. And you can check out Coastal Sports Digital Network. Get social with me at Rich Quinones, QX and IG. So a lot of March Madness fans chiming in. A lot of guys from Delaware, Baltimore. Got some North Jersey guys as well. Some Carolina guys. Carolina. I said this over the weekend when we popped on for a little rapid fire. I have no idea right now if the Carolina, how do you not? How are you not thinking? I mean, Hubert Davis still has a job. Still has a job running these guys into the ground the other day. Running them into the ground, a horrible loss. Horrible. I mean, as worse a loss that you'll ever see. What a choke job by the Tar Heels. Brutal. So we'll get into that as well. Baseball is right around the corner. I wanted to get into your comments, so keep it locked in 22 past the 2 o'clock hour on the East Coast. Quick timeout. It's a Monday edition of On Cue right here inside the friendly confines of SR 1029 FM The Game and our remote studios. All right, welcome back, everyone. I got a lot of Hoops fans chiming in. We want to get into that as well. So I will dive into some of those. Let me see. Starting in Delaware Q, it's been a good tournament. I want to say phenomenal tournament. Congrats to your Johnnies, though. Well earned. Mark and Wallingford Q, I know that was, as you used to say on the air, a white knuckler for you and the Johnnies. Congrats. Well, hey, I didn't play a minute in the game, but I will definitely take it. Kevin C., North Jersey chiming in. Q, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Pitino's one of the all-time Mount Rushmore. Definitely a top 5, 6, 7 coach. I think we're getting a little carried away. Certainly recency bias. Let's see what happens Friday against Duke, but I'll agree with you. He is definitely a program builder. That's really it. And I think anywhere you go, so think about this for a moment. Because I see some NFL guys chiming in, and they're asking me about the Giants. The Giants have been a horrible franchise for the last 10 plus years. So what did they need to do? They need to turn around and do what? Change the culture. They needed to bring in someone with a proven track record of winning. And they had to restore order. They also needed to bring in a guy that can build character and brings in his own character. And that's why they went out and they hired Harbaugh. So when you make those moves like the Giants did, like St. John's did, like other universities and teams have done over the years, you bring back what? You're bringing in instant credibility to a university and or a franchise. That's all you're really looking to do. From there, it's almost like a feeder system. It's almost like you're feeding the beast. Now, I've got credibility. I'm going to go out and I'm going to get my guys. Guys that I think will fit what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to build as a leader of this business, a leader of the school, a leader of this franchise. And it's very hard to do because you come in, like when Deion took over for Colorado, Deion sat in there and basically told those kids, half you guys aren't going to be here. I mean, look around. You're not going to be part of what we're doing. And it wasn't even about the NIL and the transfer portal. It's just you're not my guys. Guys like Harbaugh, right? Belichick, the Patriot way. The all-time great ones, Belichick, Walsh. I got to bring in my guys. Chuck, no, I got to bring in my guys. They have to fit. They got to meet my criteria. They have to meet my criteria, right? Do they love the game? Are they going to play with passion? Are they going to play hard? Are they going to give me an honest effort? They're going to bring their lunch pail to work. You know, if those check off the boxes, it's like you're looking at a job, or you're putting in for a raise or for a promotion, and you're stating your case. Okay, well, let me see. Does he do X, Y, and Z? Is he checking off the boxes, right? Is he passionate about his position? Does he love his job? Does he stay past 5 o'clock? Does he clock in early? Does he clock out late? Does he give me an honest effort? Does he produce? Do we get an ROI, return on investment? It's the same friggin' thing in sports. So the fact that St. John's hires Pitino, instantly credibility. No more nonsense. The Giants hiring Harbaugh, instant credibility. No more nonsense. Their culture changes. Their culture changes. And we see it a lot in the NFL. You go out, you hire the head coach who can stabilize the franchise right from the get-go. Right from the get-go. Smooth Operator chimes in. How do you feel about the Giants drafting Love at 5? I don't see it. I'm glad you mentioned a little football too. I think they might go linebacker. I'm hearing they like that kid Sykes out of Ohio State. That's what I'm hearing. And I'm glad, I'm glad, right, you mentioned the Giants because of the Harbaugh, right? No way, G-Man draft. I don't see it either. I don't. But listen, what's the draft? A couple more weeks, right? If he's there at 5, Harbaugh will definitely draft him. Look now, he's built his team and his play style. I think, okay, so I think the Giants, you got to be careful now. And it's a good point that you bring up. It's a good point. I understand where you're going with that. You know, the type of player they're looking for. And again, it kind of goes to my Pitino conversation, right? It kind of goes to my Pitino conversation. You got to figure out right now what's going to be the identity. What's your identity? What is your identity, right? So what are they doing right now? They added Mooney. They added Likely. They added Edmonds, right? They re-signed a couple key offensive players. They're going to give Neal another run at it. They brought in Hodges. They let some players walk, and that happens. But they got, I believe right now, you stick defensive side of the football. I don't see them drafting. Look, are you worried that Scadaboo is injury prone? And by the way, and I know some Giant fans were asking me this over the weekend about Cam Scadaboo's comments with CTE. It's just a young kid that stuck his foot in his mouth, and I don't really think he understood. I know what he was saying, and he walked it back, and he apologized, and that's the right thing to do, right? I mean, it was kind of a tasteless joke, but I'm not going to sit there. I'm not going to defend the kid. I'm not. He needs to go and talk and speak to former players. But this is what happens when you're on a podcast. You have a little more free reign to kind of say what you want to say. And I'm sure someone from the Giants, probably Pat Hanlon, who's been doing PR for years, pulled him to the side and said something. So if you think the Giants are not confident this kid can stay healthy, I just don't see them going with a running back at 5. That's not a pressing need. Like, I don't mind their running back room right now with Scadaboo and Tracy. I really don't. So I don't see it. I think they need to go defensive side of the football. Now, that's just my opinion. Let me see. Styles and Downs are going to 5. Harbaugh will trade down. I think they're going to stay where they're at. I'm telling you, man, I don't know why you want to go running back. I just don't. I don't. Now, are you going to dangle that carrot? Are you going to dangle that carrot because you have the number 5 pick and all of a sudden you're dangling that carrot? You're going to see, okay, what can we do here? Can we move that pick? I think Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State, makes sense. The Giants would love to kind of rebuild that linebacking room, right? Because they haven't been able to do it in years past. I've seen this play out before when you take and draft a running back top 5. That's just me. That's just me. But I know what you're saying. You know, hardball guy, run the football, Derrick Henry. Maybe that's the battering ram. Maybe they think this kid can come in and he can spell Scatterville. Tracy's not a bad back. Tracy's not a bad back. And he's still a young back. He's a young back. He's only 25, 26. So they might stick with the running back by committee. Or, as you said, I don't know, maybe, listen, maybe they turn around and they do a little, they shock the world, right? I know that they believe he is a big-time back who can help their offense. Listen, the kid was phenomenal in college. 21 touchdowns, almost 1,800 scrimmage yards. He's got ridiculous speed. You're asking me, do I think they would draft him? I don't know Harbaugh's line of thinking. I would think they would want to go defense because I think that's an area that they need to improve on. But you might be correct. You know, I'll let you guys argue that out. I think no matter what, at the end of the day, is he too good of a talent to pass up? I mean, are we going to start having this conversation in March? Let's just play it out for a second. I want to appease you guys. So we already know Mendoza's going number 1. That's a done deal. That's a done deal. The Jets, who the hell knows what the Jets are going to do? Maybe the Jets go with the kid Reese from Ohio State. They go linebacker. They go edge. Arizona, what direction is Arizona going to go? Are they going to go offensive tackle? Are they going to go offense? Then you got Tennessee. Now, here, listen, if this kid is there, number 4, what makes you think Tennessee's not going to grab him at 4? And if he slides to 5, then I'm sure the Giants will consider it. Either way, look, I'm going to tell you this right now. If the Giants drafted this kid, I'm not going to be disappointed. I just think the need is more, it's a more pressing to talk defense. But as some of you suggested, maybe they're loading up offensively because they want to keep giving Jackson Dart weapons. Both can be true. Both can be true, right? And maybe the Titans grab him at 4. Who knows, right? Won't matter anyway. Titans will grab him at 4. Money Mike chimes in. That's a fact, bro. Homie don't know Harbaugh draft or build his team. Listen. We all have our opinions on the show. We know how we know what Harbaugh's looking for in a player, right? But again, you have to think about this. Now follow me for a second. If Harbaugh's mentality is what? I want the best available player, then yes, lock up this kid. Lock up this kid. Now, I thought maybe they would go with a Caleb Downs. But yes, you know what he wants. Harbaugh is the guy, best player available. That's what he wants. But I also believe they need to fix their defense. And the problem is with a guy like Harbaugh, if he's going best player available, then that basically means I'm going to bypass being fixated on positions of need. But again, that's why Harbaugh is getting paid what he's getting paid. So by your rationale, you can be 100% correct. You can be 100% correct. I'm not going to complain either way. I'm not. Let me see. Hold on. I want Sykes, but I think I would take Love in a heartbeat. Scat's mom has asthma, overblown. Yeah, listen. Well, here's the problem. I'm going to tell you the problem with Scataboo's comments. Okay? He's a young player, and if you start to joke about CTE, it is taboo. It is. You can't it's an excuse. You can't say that. You can't. And you guys are very smart and you know about the NFL and you know about CTE, it's always over the last several years, it's made headlines, right? And the problem with CTE is unfortunately the only time we can really understand it to its fullest effect is when the person, or in this case, the player or the athlete, passes away, because it's only analyzed after the death. And I think, Scadaboo understood that. And I know that his mom came out and she said what she said. And look, I get it. You're on a pod. You can kind of say whatever you want. It's what we do. It's a little more free reign, free speech. I think he had a little lapse in judgment. I don't think the kid meant any harm by it. Okay? And he said the breathing issues associated with asthma, lung ailment, fake medical condition, just literally breathe air. Listen, ultimately, you're a young kid and you're going to learn pretty fast, especially when you're in that market. You're visible. You're a fan favorite. You're kind of a crazy player. They love you for that. You go on a pod, but when you start to say, CTE, fake or overblown or not real, you joke about it, that touches a nerve in NFL circles. That's all. That's all I'm saying. It touches a big nerve in NFL circles. And former players don't want to hear that crap, right? They just don't. Very disappointed that Q's not wearing a white suit today in honor of Pitino and St. John's. Colonel Sanders suit coming soon. Q's wardrobe. Listen, I'll say this. If I would have, I would have. Right? If I would have, I could have. Now, do I have the white suit? Never donned a white suit. But I did use a lot of stripes, little zoot suits, sometimes little shimmer, a little shiny. We went that route, Joey B. But yes, I'm excited. I'm pumped up. He is the Don. I mean, Pitino is the Godfather. The fact he sits there and says that kid had the, balls the size of church bells. I love it. Smooth operator, my man, chimes in. Love adds 5 years to Scottaboo's career. Probably does. He probably does. He probably does. But listen, you might be right. We know Harbaugh wants best players available. And remember, too, it's not like the Ravens have always had these high draft picks because they've always been a damn good team with Harbaugh. And that's another one of the reasons why, you got to put it in perspective, too, guys. You're dealing with the hand. You're playing with the hand you've been dealt, right? So Harbaugh won almost 200 games with the Ravens in 17 seasons. So that pretty much tells you every single solitary season, Harbaugh's in the running for Coach of the Year, and the Ravens are winning 9, 10, 11 games. Even over the last 6 years, 14, 11, 10, 13, 12. So you're really not going to have the best draft picks. Hence, I'm getting the best guy available. That philosophy. Does that translate now to a franchise that hasn't won anything over the last 10 years? So is he taking that philosophy based on his time, his measure of success with Baltimore? Like, apples and oranges. If this was the 2013 Ravens that won 5 games and then they go 8-8 and 9-7, maybe it's a different argument. Then 10-6, 14-2, 11-5, 10-7, 13-4, 12-5. You're not going to have a top 10 draft pick. You're not. But if his MO is, I'm always going to go best available talent overall and forget about, I'm going to negate desired position, what I need, then yes. By what you're saying, then I can see them drafting this kid at 5. And I don't think he's going to be there at 5, though. I think Tennessee's grabbing him at 4. Which could make the whole conversation a moot point. Think about Tennessee right now. So Tennessee went 3-14. Okay? You've got a young quarterback. And by the way, I don't like the crap that Robinson said. He signs his contract with Tennessee, and now all of a sudden he's sitting there waxing poetic about Cam Ward. Come on, man. You're going to throw Jackson Dart under the bus? That's just goofy. Just silence. But think about their backs. Think about their backs for a minute. So Pollard's getting up there. Wear and tear. He's going to be 29. Now, he only had 242 carries, but he ran for over 1,000 yards. So I can make the argument, all right, maybe they're going to stick with Pollard. Maybe they don't want to go and draft a running back at number 4. Like, I'm placating the guys that think he'll be there at 5. And I know they had a couple other. I think they had the kid Spears. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's 24, 25, right? The kid out of Tulane. So maybe they're content with what they have in their running back room. Maybe. Now, if they decide we're not going to go in that direction and he's there at 5, sure, I would say 80, 85% there's a shot that the Giants are going to grab him. That's all. Kevin chimes in, Q with the white suit. Could be done. It could be done. It really could. Giants need O-line, wide receiver, playmaker, build defense, O-line, protect guard, investment, first priority. I still go defense. 100% want Styles. Just truly believe Harbaugh would take Love if he's there at 5. Hey, listen. Might be. Giants had the 9th best O-line in the league last year. O-line is not the problem. They actually did very well. Their O-line, believe it or not, and smooth operator is 100% correct. That's why I think they would be okay with their running back room. Their O-line, for all the years we've dogged them, they played really well. And it's crazy, too. And maybe it's one of the reasons they don't want to give up on Evan Neal just yet, right? Listen, you look around the NFL, you still have to figure out your identity. That's all I'm trying to say. Your identity. G chimes in, Q, good stuff on Pitino. I agree. I'm not going to sit there and say he's the Dom, but at the end of the day, yes, it's all about changing the culture and building character. This is what this man has done everywhere. He's an all-time great. He is an all-time great. Now, is he better than a Coach K? Is he better than a Bobby Knight? Is he better than a Calhoun? I think you can make the case. You know, Wooden stands alone because of all those national championships where everyone believes John Wooden is the greatest men's head basketball coach of all time, the Wizard of Westwood. But for me, Pitino is the guy, he walks in your living room and he basically is telling your kid if he has it or not. He's no nonsense. He's no nonsense. And I thought, the seating was to kind of screw him because a lot of people don't like Pitino. He rubs them the wrong way. But all this man does everywhere he goes. I mean, think about this. The confidence where you're going to allow this kid to take it and dribble drive when under 4 seconds ago, he's done nothing up to that point. It's the first time ever in the history of the tournament somebody's first made bucket was a game winner. And oh, by the way, we saw him hit that three-pointer against Xavier, so the kid's got some stones. I mean, that is a master class. That is playing chess as a head coach. Yeah, okay. I got confidence in you. Make the shot. I'm going to allocate. I'm going to put it on you guys. Make the plays. And defensively, I think they got a puncher's shot here against Duke. I really do. Let me see. Marty in Wilmington chimes in. Q to say he's an all-time great. I think it's a little overblown. I think you're still giddy from the win. It was a fascinating win by St. John's. I remember years ago you were on $12.90 the ticket. You were waiting for the day that St. John's got a head coach like Pitino. Yeah, because I lived through a lot of bad coaches. Now, obviously, Carnesecca was the guy. Jarvis gave him a little bit of success. But again, you want to bring in a guy that changes the culture. That's all. That's all you want to do. You want to change culture. And that's all we're looking for. So St. John's fans, be excited. Giant fans, be excited. Anytime you can bring in a guy, look, for years, St. John's goes from McGuire to Carnesecca for 22 years, and then, you just throw in a bunch of guys, right? Anderson, my guy Mullins, Stevie Lavin, Jarvis, and now Pitino, who has just come in with no nonsense. Joe D chimes in from Summers Point. Q, excellent point you're talking about the NILs. I think it's actually more difficult right now for a coach to have sustained success because these guys are leaving. Yeah, but there's a flip side to that. There are players now watching what some of these colleges are doing, and even some of the smaller schools in the mid-majors. I brought this up on Saturday's show. if you're looking around at some of these colleges that I think surprised, or some of these schools that surprised, right? I'm not going to, Texas, Purdue, Iowa, no. But maybe now Nebraska, because of the little run Nebraska's on. Not Illinois or Houston, because we know they are historically great hoop schools. Arizona, we know that. But for the smaller schools that have made a little bit of a run or won a game or two in the tournament and surprised some teams, some players, some people, yes. I think now they're looking around. Listen, man, Zuby was a guy that, if you know the backstory, I mean, think about this kid for a second. Think about the guys that they brought in, right? This guy was with KU. This guy played, I think, 5 minutes. He had a cup of coffee with Kansas. And what happens? I'm going to transfer. I'm going to St. John's. Well, here we go. Because you're bringing in that credibility. That's all I'm saying. You are bringing in the credibility to start. And once you do that, it's big time. Odds on Pitino. No, that's sacrilegious. Can't do it. Can't do it. Can't do that. Nobody wears that Louis Carnesecca, the ugly sweater. Can't do it. I've been a huge fan of Pitino since he made the Knicks relevant again. And he did. He did. Boston Celtics, I don't care about that. But I remember when Pitino coached the Knicks. I loved it. It was only a couple seasons. But, oh, by the way, 88-89, they won 52 games. Remember, they swept the Sixers. They brought out the brooms, even though he didn't want to do that. And then they lost in the next round to the Pistons. But that was the bomb squad, right? Right? I mean, they love getting up and down, 3-point shots. Here we go. And again, he took a team that improved. So you go 87-88, then 88-89, they win plus 15. That is a guy that changes the dynamic, the program going forward. And there's not a lot of guys that can do that. Bobby Knight tried it. Bobby Knight's a perfect example. Bobby Knight had all the years of success in Indiana, right? The general, he had all, God rest his soul, Bobby Knight had all the success in Indiana. When it was all said and done, he won almost 950 games, 902 games. 6 all-time at the time of his passing. So 71 to 2000, Indiana. Now you go to Texas Tech, it's a little different animal. It really is. It's a little different animal. Success at Army, success in Indiana, a lot of success in Indiana. Think about all the players he sprouted, all the Final Fours, the championships, going undefeated, that 76 squad, that 81 squad. And then, getting back, everything kind of blew up in his face at Indiana. We knew his time was over at Indiana. And then he goes, let me try to go back to that style with Texas Tech. And sometimes it's very hard to do that. It really is. It's really hard to do that. I mean, would you sit there and say 138 and 82, 7 seasons? I mean, is that blowing you away? I mean, if you do the math, it's almost 18, 19 wins a season, but it's not like the success he had in Indiana in 30 seasons. It's not. So it's very hard to go to multiple places and be a culture changer, right? And look, his first couple years at Texas Tech, they won 20 plus games. They did. They made the tournament 4 times. That's success on any level. But if you're comparing it to success in Bobby Knight, not so much, because they also missed the tournament 3 times. But a guy like Pitino, everywhere this man has gone, he's not only created that buzz, that reputation, that credibility, but he's given the university a major return on their investment. And that's very hard to do. It is. It's really hard to do. A.J. Brown get traded before the season begins. I have no idea what's going to happen with A.J. Brown. I don't. and I hate to say it, I'm not trying to be dismissive. At this point, I don't care. Like, okay, you're AJ Brown. You've shown you just don't want to be in Philadelphia anymore. That's really the bottom line. He doesn't want to play with the Philadelphia Eagles anymore. Okay, we don't need, this is not breaking news, right? This is not breaking news. But we know one thing about AJ Brown. AJ Brown, when he's on the field and he's engaged and he's getting he's a hell of a wide receiver. He's a hell of a offensive weapon. He is. So if you take him off the Philadelphia Eagles, whether you like AJ Brown, the player, or he dogs a couple plays, or he alligator arms, or he doesn't round all these rounds. Listen, when he makes that offense better. You take him off the field, that offense loses something. But he doesn't want to be a part of the Philadelphia Eagles anymore. The problem is the Eagles are just not going to give him away. They're just not. And right now, AJ Brown might be the most valuable trade asset going into the draft. And the Eagles have him. The Eagles have him. The problem is no NFL team wants to pay the price for him in a trade. And everyone knows his worth. Because you got the GM Howie Roseman that's asking for a first and second round pick, but apparently that's too high for teams. Go look around the NFL. What did the Bears got a second round pick for DJ Moore? He's never been to a Pro Bowl. He's not a Pro Bowl player, right? What about the Dolphins getting multiple draft picks, a first round pick for Jalen Waddle? Am I going to put Waddle in the same stratosphere as AJ Brown? Absolutely not. If teams are serious, and if there's a team out there that says AJ Brown gets us over the hump, and if we're really serious, we've got all the pieces in place, we can make a run here, and I'll just give you one team or two. We already know that the Patriots cut Diggs, so they need they need another game-breaking wide receiver. Do they not? And also the Rams. So if they're really serious, pony up, pay up. Because Howie Roseman is not going to just give up A.J. Brown. He will hold on to him and get as much as he can. And if that means keeping A.J. Brown on the roster in 2026, he's going to do it. He is going to do it. He's not going to give up A.J. Brown. He's just not going to give him away. He's not. Begins with the culture. It always begins with the culture. Always begins with the culture. A.J. Brown to the Baltimore Ravens. Be a little interesting, would it not? Stick A.J. Brown with that offense. Patriots need a game-breaking wide receiver. They really do. I still don't believe Buffalo has a game-breaking wide receiver. I don't. I think they upgraded, but I don't believe they have a game-breaking wide receiver. Speaking of wide receivers, did you see the extension for JSN for Seattle? Numbers are ridiculous. 4 years, $168 million. He is the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history. $42 million guaranteed. No, I'm sorry. Check that. Pardon me. $42 million per year. 120 guaranteed. That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. So that dwarfs, that eclipses the Chase deal. Remember the Jefferson deal was $35 million. CeeDee Lamb, 34. DK Metcalf. How do you think DK Metcalf's got to be feeling right about now? I mean, this guy had, 3 out of 4 monster seasons with Seattle, trailed off a little bit, and then had Aaron Rodgers throwing him the football, and his numbers went down exponentially. And oh, by the way, Seattle wins the Super Bowl. JSN is a phenomenal receiver, but this is the market. This is the going rate. Here you go. Kid's 24. He's 24. And they're paying him for not only what he's done, what they believe he's going to do or keep doing. Like, he's on the fast track. He really is. He's got already 3,600 yards. 3,600 yards. I think he has close to 300 receptions. I mean, he's going to be a 10,000-yard receiver if he stays healthy. His numbers are going to be staggering. And I don't care who's throwing him the football. but it's a going rate right now for wide receivers. All right, fast approaching 3. Quick timeout. We'll close things out on the other side. All right, welcome back, everyone. 3 o'clock, straight up on the East Coast on a Monday edition of On Cue. So the Sweet 16 is set. Baseball is right around the corner. NFL, as we know, never, ever, ever stops, never, ever, ever sleeps. What else is new? And then what else we got cooking over this past week? I mean, really just college basketball dominant. I know the NBA season's starting to wind down a little bit. D chimes in. Q, what do you think about Bill Selfs and that strategy? I listen. I understand what he was doing, right? It was interesting, and the problem is he just left a little too much time for St. John's, and ultimately you got to call for what it is. The last person on the floor, the last person in the building you thought was going to beat you yesterday was Darling. Because he's done nothing. I mean, that if you're a Kansas fan, you got to be sick. You got to be sick to your stomach today because you came back, you're down what, 12-something, 13 points? I mean, the refereeing was a little, St. John's should have, even Clark Kellogg said it at halftime, St. John's should have been up by 18. They couldn't hit a shot to save their lives late in the first half, and they were still up 34-26. But Hopkins made some big shots down the stretch, some big threes, okay? Zuby was able to get inside and, more importantly, stay out of foul trouble. And then you had the kid Jackson off the bench who gave you 10. And he was pretty damn efficient, hit a couple three-pointers, and they just locked down defensively. I mean, Kansas could not get the ball in bounds. Kansas had 16 turnovers. St. John's only had 8. If St. John's makes a couple of those shots with 6-7 minutes to go, that 12-point lead is 20, and they put Kansas away. They did not make life easy for them. They just didn't. They did not shoot the ball well from beyond the arc. They were horrible. I mean, look, I get it. Pitino gives these kids a green light, but 11-35, I mean, Kansas wasn't any better, 5-14. But point is, the last kid on the floor in the building that you thought was going to beat you was a kid up to that point that was 0-4 and 0-5 from the floor and 0-4 from beyond the arc. And that was a kid Darling. And the other thing is, if you go back to Friday night, kid plays 33 minutes, and he was horrible. He was 3 of 10. He had 6 points. He got in foul trouble. He had a couple of bad turnovers, but he had a couple of rebounds, a couple of assists, and that's why Pitino keeps him on the floor, because the kid doesn't lose his head. So what does he do? Puts the ball, dribble drive, 3 seconds, boom, ball game, Sweet 16. Here we go. It was a hell of a drive. I mean, that layup, that bucket, that game winner, I mean, that's going to be an etch in St. John folklore. That kid's a hero. And good for him. And it just also tells you, it speaks to how great of a head coach that Pitino is. Yeah, run the play, draw it up. We don't care if you're 0-5, 0-6, 0-7. We don't care. Now, that kid is a scrappy player. He's had some big games this year. He had 17 in the loss against UConn, or 17 against Creighton with the three-pointer in the end. He had 16 against Xavier. He's had some big moments. You know, small but at times big moments. But he's a Pitino guy. So to your point, yeah, listen, I get what Bill Self was trying to do. I get it. If you go by the rationale, is yeah, you keep fouling, you have to make them, you want to keep them on the other side, not get past midcourt, but the kid just got the ball in, made a hell of a drive. I mean, there's really, sometimes you just got to give credit where credit is due. And I text my buddy this, I believe if that game went into overtime, St. John's was going to lose. I did not see how they were going to, um, it's a gut punch, right? It's a gut punch. You got to remember, this kid actually averaged almost 20 points when he was with Idaho State. Yeah. Yeah. Listen, so there's a reason you go and you bring this kid over, right? And like I said, now you have an opportunity to exercise the demons against Duke. And so does Pitino. Because one of the greatest moments in NCAA history was Leitner Duke against Kentucky. I was literally coming back from the movies, and there was maybe 5 minutes left in that game, and I remember my father sitting there in the living room saying, "You are missing a classic. Pull up a chair." I mean, that's just shot. That game was one of the great college basketball games. You go back now and you watch the game in its entirety, but just to watch the last several minutes of that game, and I remember there was Kentucky scored, and I should know this, but the player's name is going to escape me. Like an absolutely ridiculous bank shot. I think it was on a driving layup. I mean, they kept going back and forth and back. I think, who was it was like a running one-hander. What was the kid's name? It's going to escape me. And then, you just left too much time. You left too much time. I mean, Leitner was just phenomenal in that game. What was it? Woods, right? Was that his name? Woods? For some reason, I'm thinking, was it Sean Woods? I don't know. You guys are pretty fast with that. You'll correct me. But I remember, and it was an unbelievable call, draw up. Leitner never panicked. They worked on that play. To this day, you ask Pitino, they should have face guarded Hill. They should have. They should have face guarded Hill. They didn't. That was the problem. Because Hill was not guarded on the inbound pass. If you remember, Kentucky decided, we're going to SU Garden and Hill, right? We're going to put an extra defender on Leitner. 78, 79-foot pass. Here we go. Leitner, opposite foul line. Dribble once to his right. Turn around. Back to his left. Boom. And that's it. And you watch that play in your mind. You're like, oh, my God, that's going in. And he was flawless. He was 10 of 10 from the field, including the three-pointer, 10 of 10 from the line. Like, you're not, I understand Bill Walton had his moments in the tournament and the Final Four and championship games. Leitner, every time Leitner played in a tournament game, Leitner was friggin' annoying as hell, but he was clutch. He was clutch. But that game, I mean, that causes scars. That type of game, does it not? It does. Shout out High Point. Great effort in their loss. Yes. Actually, High Point had a really nice showing. High Point did they showed themselves to be a team that, again, when we start to look at some of these other conferences and the teams that don't get their flowers or they're shaded a lot, they played well. And it speaks to the selection committee. Look, I told you guys this last week. The first 2 days, you're going to get blowouts. But Siena played Duke tough. Howard hung in there. Michigan just pulled away in the second. Okay. Idaho, that was a blowout. It was. Michigan State blows out North Dakota State. Illinois blew out Pennsylvania. But Kennesaw State, they hung in there against Gonzaga. I mean, they were only down 6 at the half, and they lost that game by 9. The Troy game against Nebraska was a different animal. That was the blowout. But even Hawaii hung in there a little bit for the first 10 minutes. High Point gets that big win over Wisconsin. That's a signature win for that university. So, the selection committee, I think they got it right. That North Carolina loss was brutal. That loss, how Hubert Davis still has a job today is beyond me. That's a 19-point deficit that VCU erases. Why? Because Hubert Davis had no friggin' clue how to use his bench, and he ran his starters into the ground. He ran his start, and you just had no idea when to pull guys or when to leave them out there. I mean, my goodness. That is that was a brutal loss. Now, am I going to sit there and say it's as bad as Florida? No. But that's a brutal loss for North Carolina. You want to know why? Because when you think of North Carolina and you think of March Madness, it's unacceptable to get bounced as early as they did. It really is. If you're a Tar Heel fan, it's unacceptable to have that kind of loss. You can't, you just can't, you can't pigeonhole it. You can't. You don't lose like that. You don't. And that falls on the head coach. That falls on the head coach. Sure, players got to make shots. You got to D up. But that's an unacceptable loss. I think that was one of the worst losses in the tournament. And I'm surprised. I know that they're calling for his head. They're calling for his head. Because typically when you think of North Carolina and the Dukes of the world, it's unacceptable to get bounced that early. You're thinking about making deep runs. You can be a beloved player, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to come back and be a good head coach. Yeah. More times than not, it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. Man, happy Monday, fellas. And Christina, I don't know Christina. I don't know where she is because of the Jaya talk. I still think it's Vinny's new hand. Now, MIA, man. MIA. MIA. Hubert Davis, no clue how to manage a rotation. Yeah, he just basically, he spit the bit. He did. Would be awesome if you were Vince with another handle. I don't know what happened to Vince. I think Vince didn't like the fact that, I made the little joke when we were talking about the NBA. And, I think I said the soft joke, laughingly that his kid doesn't know sports. And that was pretty much it. So I'm sure he'll show up, because he's got multiple teams in the NFL. So I'm sure he'll show up sometime during September, October when Jacksonville's good or Pittsburgh's good. Who knows? Matt chimes in, Q, that's a ridiculous record extension. You think JSN is worth it? It's not what I think. It's what the market is right now. It's what the market is in the NFL for wide receivers. Did I ever believe we would see a day where a wide receiver was making $42 million? No. No, I didn't. I didn't think there would be a day where a quarterback's making 40-something million. But this is the NFL, and guys get paid, man. Guys get paid. Position players, offensive weapons, guys that are productive. And this is what happens when you win a Super Bowl. Guys want to get paid. They have to. They want to, right? Greg chimes in, Q, I'm glad you actually bring up the Scatterbo. I think he's just a young kid that didn't realize what he was saying. Yeah, I mean, but you can't joke about CTE. You just can't. You just can't. He's a 24-year-old kid, and it was a lapse in judgment. That's it. The NFL, like I said, there are certain things the NFL, it is not even that it's taboo, but they don't want to have to, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't want to have to come out and make a statement on certain things. They just don't. How about the Pats? They're signing James Hudson. Remember James Hudson, who had like 16 penalties plus personal fouls in one friggin' drive? Good, get the hell out of here. He is, yes. He's definitely in over his head, Hubert Davis, but why is he not fired just yet, right? I mean, he mismatched. He got outcoached. He got outcoached. You're talking about a historic franchise, a legendary university in North Carolina. And yeah, they were out their best player. Wilson wasn't there. I get it. But if you are the head coach of North Carolina, if you're the head coach of Duke, if you're the head coach of Ohio State, Michigan football, there's no excuses. There's not, especially with a day one bounce in the tournament. There really isn't. There are certain universities, when you sign up to take the job, you have to understand Kentucky, Louisville, Duke, UNC in basketball, Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia in football. You got to understand what you're signing up for. You have to. And he was a great player for UNC, beloved player. But again, remember I said this years ago, when you think about coaches and you think about, the legacies these guys leave, okay? The legacy that they leave and who is before them and who is going to come after them. There's always this debate, oh man, be careful, right? It's all about timing. Like, for instance, Dean Smith, who is an all-time great, was with North Carolina, at the helm with North Carolina for almost 40 years. Do you really think that Bill Guthridge was going to be the answer? No. It's very hard to be the man and then follow the man, right? You don't want to be the guy that follows the guy. So Roy Williams is with North Carolina for 18 years, and then he leaves in 2021, and now I'm the guy who's got to follow or be the predecessor of the guy, of the man. Like, you never want to be the man that has to replace the man, is my point. So Bill Guthridge never stood a chance. And Hubert Davis, he wasn't going to last. I'm surprised he's lasted this long. You go from Roy Williams to Hubert Davis. You go from Dean Smith to Bill Guthridge to Matt Doherty. You guys aren't going to last. So to your point, he's in way over his head. But you cannot blow a 19-point lead. You can't run your starters in the ground. You can't understand that, I got my bench guys playing well. No, I'm going to put them back on the bench and go back to the starters and run them into the ground. That's all coaching. That loss is squarely on the shoulders of Hubert Davis. Squarely on the shoulders of Hubert Davis. And how in the world he's not been fired? Why? Because they're looking through the contract. They're trying to figure out the out. That's the other thing. It's always about the out. What are we going to do? Look at the money. Look at the contract. What is he going to get owed? I'm sorry, man. You're UNC. You're UNC. Figure it out. Figure it out. I don't care about the buyout. I don't care about any of that stuff. You cannot get bounced like that again. You just can't. He's not a good head coach. And if we're being really transparent, you can't have him come back, be head coach of North Carolina. And did you hear that his radio show kind of scrapped the UNC rumors of him being fired? Did you listen to his presser? So basically, he postponed his show, Hubert Davis Live, because he has no idea what's going to happen. Because his future is up in the air. You can't lose that game. You just can't. You led most of the freaking game, and you had horrible free throw shooting. Yet you couldn't inbound the ball, and you lose an OT, and you blew a 19-point lead. And afterwards, you had no answers. You had zero answers. And the problem is maybe he has a little bit of wiggle room because he had early success with UNC, because they went to the national championship game in 2022. They went to the ACC championship 2024. But the past 2 seasons, horrible. Horrible. It's very hard to replace the man who is the man. It really is. I'll answer to Vince if he makes sure. No. I'm going to tell you, DB is not Vince. He's not Heat 12 man. He's not Heisman. He's not, what was the other friggin' handles? I don't even remember. He's not a Jags fan. He's not a Steelers fan. No eyeballs on this one. All right, last time out. We'll come back. We'll close it out. All right, don't forget to download the Odyssey app. Check out SR 1029 FM, the game. So we'll talk a little more Sweet 16 as the week progresses. NBA, if you are curious. Pretty solid night in the NBA. Schedule winding down. Baseball right around the corner. We're hoping to track down Steve Gardner, John DeMarshall in the NBA. Maybe we'll pop up Costco for a little bit. Talk a little Sweet 16. I know he's giddy with the wrestling championships that went on over the weekend. He's posting wrestling left and right. Oh, my goodness. All over the friggin' place with this. Rutgers, you know, and all the wrestling stuff. So we'll see if we can grab Costco for a couple moments. All right, good stuff with the, there you go. That's what we're talking about. Giants, Knicks, Yankees, Islanders. All right, not a 4 for 4, but a 3 out of 4 with the Islanders. Not bad. Yeah, listen, you don't look like that Jacksonville, Pittsburgh kind of obscure kind of fan to me, DB, so you're okay with us. Don't forget, tomorrow, a little rapid fire on a Tuesday as well. And then a Woosah Wednesday. Check out the show notifications as well. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. You guys are fantastic with the comments as well. Always good stuff. Appreciate you guys chiming in. Man, you can think on that one before we get out of here. How about the kid that left high school? TO wins the Wrestling Championship. Yes. I saw, you know what I did see with the wrestling championships? I saw the one kid didn't shake friggin' hands. That was a little Bush League, right? Penn State crushed it, did they not? They went off, as we like to say. 5th title. It's a perfect time for sports. March Madness, baseball around the corner, NBA winding down, NFL, draft around the corner. All right, we'll get into a lot more NFL mañana. Don't forget, keep us locked in. Check out the show notes and notifications. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. You guys were fantastic on the Hoops Talk today. Appreciate it greatly. We'll dive into that a little more tomorrow. Mix in a little NFL, as I mentioned, to start to look at these win totals in baseball. Have a wonderful Sports Monday. Appreciate you guys chiming in on a Monday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Get social with us at SR 1029 FM, the game, on my X and IG at Rich Q on Q, the YouTube channel, Rich Q as well. TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. We will talk to you mañana. Check out the show notes as well. Fresh roasted coffee, BYP20. As I mentioned, subscribe and click the notifications so you guys know exactly what time we come on live, okay? That's all we care about, coming on live for you guys. All right, have a wonderful Monday, and as always, this has been a Monday edition of On Cue. Be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, buen día.